Ah, thank you.
Not that I know anything about drinking sake, David. Oh, there it is.
Yeah,
This is what Tom's talking about.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
both of
Yeah.
them.
cool.
You've got one too.
I
Woohoo.
have
Hey,
one
look,
from
there's
each.
there's the
So much more,
structure on
so much
the,
more
on the right
practical
of
than
the
those little tiny
photo.
glasses. I'll tell you that.
Well, the tradition with these cups is you put the glass in I'm not sure whether you call them cups or boxes. You put the glass in the wooden holder, and then you pour the sake so it overflows the glass into the
Yeah.
holder.
Yeah.
And I really shouldn't be speaking. Someone who's Japanese should be explaining this.
There. I thought there was one in. You know. All right,
It's time.
I'm gonna get the notepad open. I think a notepad.
If anybody wants to take notes with Brian, that's appreciated.
Hey, David, since you always rewrite everything I write, what's the notepad we use here? Wait, it's the hold on here.
Go to the agenda. It's easiest to get to
Yeah,
from
yeah,
that.
that's the one off the agenda, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Go there. That's how I
Also on
found it
the top
before, but
Meet Echo, you can tear it off into a new tab.
let's see. I started typing one and then I was getting weird behavior. Download meeting trails. Nope. Nope. Nope.
All right, I'm going to start with the note well for anybody who hasn't seen this yet this week or, in their life, here it is. I'm supposed to let you hang out and see it for a moment. Okay, moment's over. Also, I'll say, code of conduct, anti-harassment procedures, all of that's referenced in here too. Be nice to people. All right, they tell me to put this in there. If you haven't scanned the QR code and logged in via your mobile device to be a participant, please do so that we don't get a closet next time. But I think the 4 of us could probably, or 6 of us in the room can probably fit in the closet. And just so you know, the session's being recorded and masks are required. Everyone's got one on, so good work.
I'm sorry, what did you say about the QR code and logging in? I don't have any QR code.
No, that's for the people in the room. There's a QR code on the screen. If somebody isn't talking, there's a QR code to sign you in. It's the blue sheet.
Got it. But we logged in and connected online, so we're good, yes?
It just logs you into a local version of Meet Echo. So
Yeah,
everybody
we've
who's remote is
registered.
good.
Signed the blue sheet, quote unquote, right?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Thanks for asking clarifying question for somebody who's trying to go fast so that I can give you guys all the time I can. Here's the agenda. I know that we want to try and potentially bash this. I don't know how to solve that. Everybody wants to go first. There it is. Oh, you know what? I updated the agenda in the actual agenda for the meeting, but I didn't update this slide. So there's a slightly updated version on the actual meeting system, which includes Tom doing 3 presentations, but I didn't give him any more time. And other than that, I think it's the same.
As a person who seems to have caused all this commotion, I would have no problem with bashing 5661 to come before PNFS layout.
yeah, we'll find it.
So I don't care. Is that amenable? So the problem is they would prefer NFS layout and RDMA commit to go together.
Let's get those out of the way. They should be quick.
Any objections? None heard, so we'll go with that. I do have a couple of chair things. So we designated experts need to be updated. I think we may have handled most of that, but I will double check. That may be a note on the list. If you want to be a designated expert for the IANA registries, feel free to volunteer. You want to come, just, yeah. I think we may have actually put your name down already. That was Tom raising his hand. We also want to start doing some weekly meetings to advance the BIS document. We got not great response on the poll that was sent out. This is the best set of times out of the poll. There was a lot more times presented. If I should do a new poll, happy to do that. But what do we need to do to kind of make this happen and get the BIS document done? Sorry, so the time zone was Eastern time as sent out in the original email, not presented here.
For myself, I'll say that I did this a ways back, and I probably have new recurring meetings on my calendar, so I should check. But I'm
Like I said,
yeah.
sorry, happy to redo the poll if folks are interested and are more willing to participate if I do a new poll.
I don't need a new poll. I was just saying I should go double check. I don't have any new conflicts.
Okay. Well, if there's time, I will revisit this. Otherwise, I'll put it to the list. Like I said, I want to try and get us moving so that we can get as far through the agenda as possible. Yeah, that's the end slide. All right, let me switch slides. All right, Christoph, you're up.
Okay. Yeah, so this is, maybe actually jump to the next slide instantly. Talking about the, using the SCSI layout with NVMe. This has been going on for a while with a long break. So I initially started it with a simple informational draft that was using an NVMe document that we didn't decide is up to standards. And then I think it was Dave Black back then made the comment that we really need to do this properly. And then it just laid there for a couple of years. And then last year we actually started doing that proper work because people got interested in it again. So
Chair wants to note this was the earliest RFC ever released. Oh, sorry. The chair wants to note this is the earliest RFC ever released in May 10/17.
oh, yeah, typo. And that's a
Oh,
typo
or it's a typo. Ah.
that I actually copied from my last slide deck. So people didn't notice it last time I talked about this.
Most people in the Middle Ages couldn't read.
True. Okay, so next slide. And between the 4 editors that we have on there, I think we've bashed a lot out of this document, and then we got a good review from Dave Novak that led to a new revision a couple of weeks ago. Big change was this actually really moved to the standards track now. After we had intended that, we put in all the actual mappings into the document, and I think we're basically ready for a working group last call now. There's like 2 minor items. Next slide. One is that we really need to agree on a name. So the current name, as pointed out by Dave Novak, doesn't really fit in very well for a standards track document. And Dave was nice enough to provide an alternative, which I'm not very happy with because we're not really talking about transports. We're talking about a protocol. So my suggestion below was using the Perl NFS PNFS SCSI layout to access NVMe storage devices. Dave Black was mostly but not quite happy with it and thought we should drop the device because otherwise people would think it's an SSD, I think, if I can summarize Dave correct. While I actually prefer the storage device term because that's a term from the NFS spec designating the devices that PNFS actually talks to. So probably need to do a little poll what we're going forward with, very quick edit. The other thing that Dave Novak noticed is that we don't have the proper BCP14 tag for the BCP14 terms in there. And that's because XML to RFC v1 that this draft is written in from back in the day doesn't even support it. Should probably be a quick conversion to either version 2 or a markdown based format. And I'm going to look into that after this meeting. I don't want to do it just before the deadline. Perfect. Yeah. So I think the big controversy is the name right now, and everything else, feel free to report to me, but we're getting down to minor things.
So do we want to, obviously we'll wait for the next draft and then go to the list for a working group last call poll potentially. Does anybody have any issues with that?
Can we just take the name off the table real quick?
So I think Dave wants to say something.
Oh,
I was going to take a name off the table right now. Christoph, just go. If you strongly prefer to have the word devices in there, let's just do that. This one word is not worth arguing over.
Let's say I prefer it. Strongly might be too strongly worded.
okay. We will take number 2.
Just do it. I'm not arguing any further.
Okay.
Word.
Got it.
Anything else?
All right, we'll take that to the list when the next revision is out.
Yep.
And
So in a week or two, I'll do a new version with a new name and a new base format, and then we can go through it. Thanks.
are you
Okay, good.
um,
Tomas, dígame. Maybe he doesn't understand Spanish.
Expect to be going so quickly. Thanks. I was asked to give a quick update and start the discussion for the RDMA commit draft. Go to the next slide. Okay, the slide's not. Oh, there we are.
do you want control?
No, it's fine. There's only a couple slides. I don't really need control. So this is just an update to remind people that it specifies extensions to RFC 5040. There are 3 operations in this document. They provide enhanced placement semantics for RDMA to persistent media, not just to memory, but through the bus to a block of persistent memory or other non-volatile RDMA addressable devices. Can be used for peer devices, actually, as well as memory, if they're addressable by the RDMA address space. It also provides remote content verification and a transactional operation. So it supports database style workloads, shared memory workloads, storage workloads. It's actually quite a versatile set of extensions, I believe. I first published this with a set of earlier co-authors back in February of 2016, believe it or not, 7 years ago. It was updated in
Not
March of
1016.
2020. Not 1016, 2016, much more modern than the prior draft.
Yep.
Absolutely. It was updated in March of 2020, where we discussed it. I'll talk about that discussion in just a second, and again 2 months ago. Next slide. The proposal is to consider working group adoption. In 2020, we discussed it and we had rough working group consensus. It was largely positive for adoption in the NFSV4 working group. It's odd that an RDMA document is NFSV4, but the STORM DDP groups were previously closed. TSVWG was viewed as a very broad and non-RDMA expert group, nonetheless possible. But NFSV4 seemed like the likely candidate because NFSV4 itself could consume this protocol. And RDMA experts were present and knocking around the halls of the NFSV4 working group. Received some comments afterward, no formal action was taken. A little while ago, I refreshed the draft, incorporating those comments and some others, made some other updates, and I believe it's ready for consideration.
I agree.
So on the next slide, I'll just highlight a few points.
catching me between. Oop, my bad.
New deck. Oh, no. Oh, thank God. It's the old deck. All right, slide four, the second to last one before the discussion. There we go. If it's adopted, there are a few things to consider. Half the oh, this is the old version of the slides. I was just going to say the scope and the schedule are probably most important. About half the document is informative. Chuck Lever made some comments on that. Others have noticed it. I don't know if that content's still useful. It's been there since 2016. I can remove it. I could split it into another document, but we ought to figure out whether it's relevant. The title is wrong. It needs a new title. I propose RDMA placement extensions. There are prototypes for this that have been done, but they're not publicly shared or shareable. I'm aware of them, but I can't really tell you what they are because they were done privately. I don't believe it's appropriate to include references to this. Some have asked me for that. There's also a very similar protocol in the InfiniBand Trade Association for Rocky, a set of extensions for Rocky and InfiniBand. And it's actually standardized. That spec 1.6 was published last year. Unfortunately, the IBT spec is closed and available to members only. It actually is fairly expensive just to see it. However, the protocol and application semantics are basically identical to this draft. I was involved in that document, so that's not an accident. An experimental Linux prototype exists. It extends the software Rocky driver called RxC. I don't know if these are relevant to this document or to IETF, but I just wanted to mention them. And finally, the software iWarp Linux SIW driver has an implementation, which this could be implemented in. It hasn't been done yet. The extensions have not been done yet. But I spoke yesterday, or this morning actually, to Bernard Metzler, the maintainer. He's at IBM Zurich. He's very interested in pursuing this work. So I think the soft iWarp would be relevant if it's done soon. So that's all. We should discuss whether we should adopt this as a working group item.
Christoph, you have your hand raised?
Well, I just have one comment, if you don't mind. I agree with the adopting this, but the question then is, you mentioned this would be useful by NFC4. If it is going to be used by NFC4, it will probably be through an extension to RPC over RDMA. So
No, I don't think it would require that.
okay. Well, you would the alternative is to specify how this extension would be used by NFSV4 in another NFSV4 document.
Sure, that could be written. I think it would be speculative at this point. It would be one writer's opinion. But a very, very similar effort was done in the SMB3 protocol. And it required no change to the SMB3 protocol, actually, to add what we called push mode. That was one of the prototypes that I'm talking about.
All right.
Okay,
We
fair
have.
enough, but I think once this is done, and once it is, I think it's fairly far along. There will be interest in using it. So I'm not sure how that will be accommodated, but
yeah, I mean, I would love to have that discussion. I'd be happy to put that on my agenda for proposing a little bit of discussion in NFSV4.
that'd be good.
Tom, you have great interest in the room here with a person standing at the mic. The chair
Yes,
recognizes Christoph Helwig.
Right.
You were in the. I removed you from the queue.
No,
Yeah. You.
Because it was supposed to talk again.
Yes.
So, yes, I support working group adoption, and I guess by default, it's the NFS.
Can someone turn on Christoph's mic?
Yeah, let's do that.
Oh, hooray.
So I absolutely support the working group adoption. And while NFS4 seems initially an odd working group, as Tom said, by default, I think this is where the remaining RDMA experts converge. So unless we have a real problem with the charter, we should do it. I would absolutely favor splitting out the informational parts.
Can I just comment
Yep.
quickly on the charter question? I actually reviewed the charter kind of right before the meeting, the session today, and I do believe it fits within the charter. We might not have a milestone for it, but I believe it fits in the charter.
Perfect. So I think splitting out the informational part that gives a lot of the history is probably something we should do before bringing it into the working group. And I think before we go to working group last call, we need interoperating implementations, and the software IWRP is a good start, and I'd be happy to at least help out a little bit with it, even if Bernard is way more qualified, of course.
Great.
Okay.
Traditionally, we wrote a problem statement document that contains most of that informative text. I could split it. I think it will look a little weird, but with a little bit of polish, it might be okay. And it's probably worth keeping for historical, if nothing else, purposes.
Okay. David Black, you're next.
Okay, like Christoph, I strongly support adoption here. I believe the history of things here is that based on Tom's slide, with kind of the history, NFSV4 work group has effectively been designated as the work group that will do whatever maintenance update work is needed on the IWRP protocols that were originally done in the BDP working group. And precisely for the reason on that slide, namely the RDMA expertise is here. And I don't think it's necessary that this be used in NFSV4 for the draft to be adopted and progressed here, much as it might be nice.
All right. I'm going to run a poll, which is basically an adoption poll, and we'll follow up on the list, but sounds like we had support at the mic. Wait, did you end it?
Hey, the poll disappeared before I could click.
I didn't end it. I didn't do anything.
Well, I responded to it.
He ended it. Do it again.
All right, let me see if I can do this quickly.
I'm just going to raise my hand.
Okay, I'm raising my hand again.
I raised my hand. It ended.
Doesn't
Oh,
last
maybe
long,
I
does it?
hit the end session button. I screwed something up badly. But I don't know what else to do to register my vote. This is a vote.
There were only
Just
two
don't vote.
boxes you could.
Well, yeah, we'll count you as, well, the chair Seymour. We'll count you as good, Dave.
I'm not going to vote either. Count me. Do it one more time. Sorry, guys. We're having a technology problem.
Okay, I'm hitting raised hand. Live results. Dismiss. Okay.
So we're going to vote until we get a result we want.
Hey, next I'm going to start Politburo version and just like, stand up and tell me you can't do this. Otherwise, I'm saying yes. All right. I'm going to take it that everybody who wants to vote at this point has.
And well, I didn't. I'm a 6. Okay. I
Yeah.
just don't want to touch it because every time it hit raise hand, it disappears. And I didn't end the session. Okay.
All right. That looked positive. We'll take it to the list and do a confirmation, but I expect that that's looking good.
Okay. 6 positive.
Okay, Dave, you're on.
Okay, well, this is the first slide, and there are no fancy graphics on this one. Anyway, now, okay, so there are 4 documents involved in this effort. One is internationalization. That has been a working group document for at least 6 months. Now, the good part is there's no objections issues that I heard from anybody. The bad part is there's been no discussion of it. People are not really interested in this area, but we do have to address it, especially given what's in RFCs 5661 and 8881, which is just not implementable, and we just can't go forward with that. So the second document is RFC 5661 BIS. For that, we've just completed the adoption call, or I don't know exactly what it started in October, and then for a while it was adopted, but we didn't have the right document posted, and now we've completed that, and I think that's good. Then security, I don't know what, that somehow got lost in the adoption process, and we need to fix that. And then there's RFC 5662 BIS. And somehow that got lost, and we never really started the adoption process with that one. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, let me explain in internationalists of why we had to do this. The problem was when RFC 3530 was not written, the internationalization.
Hold on, we have a question from Zahed.
Dave, if you go back to previous slide, the first one,
Yep.
it expired, right? This document expired. So basically, I would like to know, like what's the plan with this document? I mean, this is nobody is working on it. It's getting expired, and no one. Can I finish first?
As soon as
Dave, can I finish first?
What?
Let me finish first, then answer. So this no one is working on it. It's not it's getting expired, and there is no like discussion and anything that this working group is not interested. I understand this is really important, so I would like to get the view of this working group, like what exactly the plan for this one.
Okay.
Thank you.
First of all, I'm working on it, and as far as renewing it, refreshing it, I was stopped by the fact that I don't know the date when you're allowed to submit. I know that several days ago we stopped. There's the thing and there's no indication anywhere of when that ends. So
there are indication in it where it ends. I mean, when the IETF meeting opens, the submission process again opens, so you can submit it anytime during this week.
Okay, I'll do that Monday.
Okay, thank you.
And I hope that in the sections in slides 3 through 5, I'll answer some of your other questions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, on to the next slide. Okay. The history of there was that this group was not really involved in the internationalization for RFC 3530. And it was never implemented. And if you look to read that in detail, you see that it's basically not possible or useful to implement. So we faced this problem for v4.0 in RFC 3530, RFC 7530. Now, and since this is the same, all the implementations are the same, it's best done in a single document that applies to all of NFSV4 minor versions. One thing that was pointed out by Nico Williams in his supposed review, there's no guidance for internationalized case-insensitive file system handling. And that's one of the reasons the document is as large as it is. Anyway, let's move on to the next slide. So as far as the next steps, which addresses Zahed's question, the document does need further review. There's probably things wrong with it, but there is little working group interest in this area. And I can't magically create anything, and neither can Zahed. So we just have to deal with that fact. Anyway, we had earlier, we had a review by the internationalization team. And someone suggested that we just ask for some help. And David Black suggested some people. And I sent some email. And that email was interpreted as a request for an early review. And when we got that review, we asked specifically about guidance about the about internationalized domain names and some changes that were necessary in that because of changes in those documents. We never got that. And what we got is review by Nico, which basically, although the tagline was, "This is on the right track," really Nico's was, I should have done something entirely different that applies to a lot more file systems and treated the file system itself as an entity on a par with the client and the server. And that was just not workable. And I explained that to Nico. Anyway, we still need to get a meaningful review out from outside the GRU. Let's go on to the next slide.
Lars is in queue.
Okay.
Hey Dave, this is Lars. So I think Zahed, as the AD, needs to find somebody from ART to work with you guys on this, because what's going to happen if you guys do this document in isolation, it's going to go up to the ISG. That review team that you don't like is going to review it, and you're going to get a discuss on it, and then you have to do the work. This is really hard to get right, as you well know. Thanks for holding the pen for so long. I think we need to find like Nico was sort of assigned, I think, as an outside expert, right? And so we got to find some person like that again, because I think Nico disappeared from the IETF in the meantime. But I think this needs to be written with that team, together with that team, and some compromise needs to be found, because otherwise it's just not going to go forward. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that comment. And I hope that you and Zahed will be able to find the right person. And I hope the right person exists. Okay.
Christoph?
Yeah, so I finally found some time to look through that document, and to be honest, it makes me a little unhappy. And part of that is just that NFS4 always had a weird idea of how internationalization could work in the environments it's in, and has been focusing a lot on the wrong kinds of problems. And I don't think the document substantially improves on that, while actually also creating interoperability problems, right? So I think we're much better trying to take a step back and figure out what the actual implementations do, and how that maps to the text in the previous drafts. And then the other big problem I have with the document is that it's trying to cover 4.0 and 4.1 in one document, which I think creates a lot more confusion than it solves. So
Well, I disagree on
need
that
to find
point,
some time
because-
to write this
because-
down, but I'm not happy with the state of that document.
Okay, let me address the issue about both minor versions. There's no implementation of internationalization that distinguishes between v4.0 and v4.1. They're all the same. They're all those who basically adopt the handling of internationalization of NFSV3, which is essentially none, do the same thing for v4.0, and those that rely on the file system to do normalization independent file name comparison, they're the same in v4.0. There is no difference. This is better, I think. Whatever you think about the current document, better done. Now we have a document for RFC 7530. Now one would just duplicate that one opportunity would just duplicate that document 4v4.1, but there's no point in that. And the other one is the issue that Nico raised, which is how can you handle internationalization for where you're case insensitive. So I don't. Maybe we can just withdraw that. Okay, so let's. Okay, I think that let's just deal with the fact that there's some disagreement on that, and let's go on to the next slide. Next.
So, do you have a comment? Hold on. Sorry, Dave. We have 3 people with comments. Zahed first.
Zahed. So David, first one. I mean, do you have like any kind of like what kind of meaningful review you want in the next slide? Maybe I can comment on after that one. But what's in the next slide?
It's not about internationalization. It's okay. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Okay, so but I think you covered this one already. So the thing is, like I think Lars pointed out, like I mean, we need to find somebody from the team to actually do the review. But the question was like, did Nico kind of, as you mentioned, Nico kind of suggested like we do something different. So what's the view on that one? I mean, are you working? You said like you're working on changes. Like, is that what you're working on, or like?
No, I'm just. Currently, I'm working on refreshing the document, and I don't see major changes. I don't agree with
Okay.
Christoph about what major changes would be.
I was not talking about Christoph. I was talking about like Nico's comment review. Did you address that one? Was there a discussion with the review team, and did you make a decision, or the working group made a decision what to do with the reviewers review? Because I mean, if I'm going to find somebody new, like, and then there is already a review which is not addressed, what's the point of finding a new reviewer? So was Nico's review addressed somehow?
Well, I addressed one of the points in that which was the handling of case insensitive internationalization, and I think I did that. His difference of approach, I don't know. It wasn't addressed in the document. I just told him that his approach did not make sense, and that was the one thing that the management of the internationalization group agreed with me. They thought Nico was crazy. I didn't think he was crazy, but I think what he proposed was unworkable.
Okay. So then I understand. So at least we address some of previous comments, review comments, so we can find a new one. And then I want to come back to Christopher. I think you had a very good comment here. I was like thinking like if you'll be able to provide a kind of a review of this current document, so that Dave and us all kind of like to discuss on that one. Would it be possible? Yeah, okay, that's great. So if you, Dave, Christopher gives some reviews and you work on it, and then in the meantime, I'm trying to find a reviewer from the internationalization review team. Make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'm reorganizing the queue. Hold on. I think I bounced David by accident. My system is working. David Black, you go first.
Okay, so last time we had to go looking for an appropriate reviewer. The answer turned out to be Pete Resnick, which is not going to make Lars's and Zahed's search for a good reviewer any easy, because Pete was very good. And Zahed, I hope you have enough machinery and leverage to see off what Nico's trying to do, because we did this once before. The last internationalization mess, it was because when the NFSRC was going through IESG, they had this cool new idea for internationalization, flicked it on NFS, and nobody implemented it. That was the mess that I think Pete and myself were involved in cleaning up. Let's not do that again.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the root problem goes back to that and before that, and that is the vast majority of NFS server implementations do not implement internationalization, at least for file names, period. They export whatever internationalization semantics the underlying file system has. And if we fail to take account of that, that's just going to get us into this endless dead loop with people that are trying to get internationalization right, like Nico, which in theory are very, very good points, except for typical NFS server implementations, they are not applicable because there is no way the NFS server can do this if the underlying file system doesn't do it. And point number 2 is that, yes, case insensitive NFS servers or exports absolutely exist, but they're not really the case that matters. So while we should handle them, what really matters for most existing and potential future NFS users is an NFS server that sits on a vaguely Unix-like file system that is case sensitive and that doesn't do any normalization. And if we don't accept the fact that this is what actually matters, and the probably next most important case is a file system that could or could not be case insensitive and does UTF-8 normalization deep down in the file system that the NFS server doesn't have access to, I don't think we're going to make any progress on this.
Wait, so Brian Pulaski, NFS servers since the dawn of time have failed to fully implement many semantics of the NFS protocol. Sun OS, it worked and everything else didn't. So I don't think the protocol is going to solve the problem. We just need the protocol is not going to be an internationalization translator. Maybe I misunderstood you. The server implementation is going to have to somehow make itself work with clients so that it can actually perform. That's the history here.
Yes.
Yeah. Are we agreeing?
Yes. And what I'm saying is, in practice, no matter what's in the spec, what we have for most use cases is just a Unix file system that's exported over NFS, and pretending we can do all kinds of internationalization magic that might in theory be very useful is not helpful, because that's not what's going to happen in practice no matter what we put in the spec.
Well, except for the case that we do have one instance where there's a file system that does normalization independent name matching. And I had to allow that since that was part of 75. And I assume that it is the same for v4.0 and v4.1. So I think that's why we wrote RFC 7530 as we did,
Okay.
and why I adopted the same approach in this document.
Okay. I think Chris just gave me a polite way of saying, now we understand why this document wasn't just adopted immediately. So we're going to take this to the list for further discussion, and I would actually like to participate in that. Interesting. Okay, so I'm going to mark it for going to the list. David Black, do you have anything to add on, or can we do that on the list?
I was going to very, very quickly agree with where Christoph is digging, which is fundamentally you want to let the names in the underlying exported file system show through, and the less dorking NFS does with those names, the happier everyone's going to be in figuring out what's actually going on.
Okay, I don't know how in IETF language you can say less dorking, but I agree with the sentiment.
Okay, so we're going to take it to the list. And I apologize. I'm writing my notes here in the IETF approved notepad. It is still filling out what I typed 5 minutes ago on Christoph's former comment. So I will go into the minutes and dig out what happened. Okay, we'll take it to the list. what's next?
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Okay,
5
so
minutes
now,
left in your time slot, Dave.
sorry?
You have 5 minutes left to cover this, the rest of
Well,
this.
I guess I won't cover it, but anyway, let me just focus on the main document, which is RFC 5661 bis. Now, the motivations there were to address the errata reports, including some that were rejected. And I think, Tron had some problems with these being rejected, but it was necessary according to the rules that rejected them. But that doesn't mean that the working group is not free to change its mind. And that is the approach I take in the current RFC 5661 bis. The big thing here is to accommodate a lot of things in NFSV4 wide documents. One is RFC, the already written RFC 8178, which is the new rules for minor versions and extensions. The new nationalization document that we just discussed, and the new security document, which we won't have time to discuss. And also to get rid of other documents which update RFCs 5661 and 8881. For example, RFC 8434 is a document which updates RFC 5661, and that needs that has not been currently done, but in the later update of the document, we have to incorporate what that document said and use it to revise, not all that substantially, but to revise the 2 chapters on PNFS. Anyway, that's the motivation for why I've been spending a lot of my life on this document. Anyway, let's go on to the next slide. So we now have a -00, which has which I just submitted, even after some confusion about the adoption call. So I changed a whole lot of stuff to address almost all the errata reports, although there's still a few left, mostly related to PNFS. And I made some changes to adapt to the new document structure. Most of those are done, but there's some unresolved issue about PNFS security, which relate to the borderline between this document and security document. And there are new appendices describing the progress of the work, because I'm expecting this document to go on over time, and we need to keep track of what we've done and what we haven't done and what still needs to be decided or addressed. And those are appendices A and B, which was okay. Let's on to the next slide. Okay. Now, in the -00 that just posted relative to the last note, which was -05, and that one is also expiring. I don't care. Anyway, corrections of typos that number of people point out to me. Chuck Lever asked that the discussion of the work's progress makes more sense appendices as it is in the security document, and so I created appendices A and B in -00. Now, I think as we work in the interim meetings, we'll use those appendices as a guide to where we are and where we have done. And there was some dispute between Chuck and myself about where you use the term encryption and confidential. I made some changes toward using confidential, but I think we still don't fully agree on that. And I think one of these in -101 will I expect some further discussion between Chuck and myself, probably on the list, about where we use one and where we use the other. Okay, let's go on to the next, one more slide. And I think, how much time do I have left?
45 seconds. 45 seconds.
Okay, maybe I'll rush through this. So I think there's some important controversies that remain And these are things that we'll be discussing in some of the weekly interim meetings. So Chuck and I have a disagreement about PNFS, security for PNFS. I think that I do this, although I don't do it I do this in RFC 5661 bis. Since NFS security is an alternative that's suggested by Chuck was in the security, I don't think that would work very well because the security document is focused on the role of RPC and how you use it. And so I think that continues to be a point of controversy, and I think that will be discussed on the list. I think now that I've posted this document, and I hope, and also we Chuck may or may not have, and I may have disagreements about confidentiality versus encryption. Okay, now this is the last slide, and I'm going to have to end after this. What is the further work that needs to be done on this document? I think the first point is the changes that were made, and they're summarized in the appendices. And I think I hope people will review that, look at the appendices, and bring in issues to the list, and we can address these at the interim meetings. And there are also some issues in Appendix C. One is there's a lot of cases that's just where the use of RFC 2119 terms is either unclear or wrong, and there's an issue with the handling of aborts. Basically, it says you must, when you issue a request, you must not terminate that until you get a response. Well, many clients, including all the ones I know of, including the Linux client, do not obey that. That must, and for good reason, because someone may hit Control-C and terminate the RPC transaction. But I don't think you can have a situation where it says you must not do A, and every implementation violates that must. And also I need, as mentioned in Appendix C, is to update the discussion of directory delegation, because I think there are a lot of gaps in which was discussed several IETFs ago, in our performance of directory operations, and these can be addressed by directory delegation. But for direct delegation to be usable, some things have to be clarified, and we'll discuss that on the list. So I think my time is up. If you have time, look at the remaining 6 slides, but my time is up. Okay, this is the last slide, the summary.
Yep. I know that the document was posted relatively recently. If I can get, kind of a quick informal poll, are folks intending to kind of review and look at what's there? All right, that's not like a good sign. I'll bring this back up as a kind of talk at the end of the meeting about interim meetings. All right, moving on.
Let's move on. Well, now I'll try not to go to sleep until the meeting is over.
Yeah.
Is it on or off?
It should be on, I think.
Okay. Delegation of state IDs. Can next slide, please. First published in 2018, kind of medium for what we're doing. Again, we had a break just because we did. We have an open source implementation of the client. The reason why I'm pushing the agenda here is the Linux client maintainer wants this to be an open standard before he will take it into the client officially. And we were accepted for working group last call in IETF114, and that got derailed. So afterwards. by one individual. So next slide, please. So since 114, we've been informed it's not ready. I've addressed major issues from David's reviews. The major one is I split out the weak cache consistency into a new document. And at this point, I want a solid plan to enter last call, because either it's ready or we can identify why not. And that's that for this document, I believe.
Okay, I want to do a quick poll. Who's actually read it and done a review?
Well, I've read it and done a review. I haven't done a review since the changes, and I will do that within the next few weeks. My impression is that it's probably ready.
Has anybody else?
Yes.
And can I get,
So Tigran, Mick, I can't spell his last name.
all right, so you got one more.
Tigran, and then Rick Mackelman
Okay.
has read it as well. These are on the mailing list. They've given reviews.
All right, that's good enough. All right. And no, well, I mean, obviously we'll take this to the list. No other objections to a last call? All right, we'll take it to the list, but sounds like it's been reviewed.
All right, thanks.
Hold on, which one was that? That was the, okay.
I'll just go with whatever one's
No.
presented. All right, so this is reporting of errors via layout return. So the problem statement, I actually introduced this in IETF 114, and we decided to, I asked, should I bring it into the DELSTID, and the consensus was no, let's present a new document. So here I have the new document, and it's basically a way to allow the client to report back to the server why it hasn't done a file recovery on a file. Well, the reason it hasn't is because there are errors present, and it will allow us to smartly break the mirror. Next slide, please. So the way to do this is use a layout return with an all zero anonymous state ID. It's a simple extension. It doesn't break existing implementations, because if they don't support it, they're going to return bad state ID. Next slide, please. Is there another slide? All right. And I've submitted it as a draft. I'm looking for it to become a working group document. There's been, again, 2 reviews on the mailing list from the same individuals I mentioned earlier to this document. And I since updated that draft 0 to draft 1 this morning with their with my responses to their review comments. No, wait, that was WCC. Never mind.
So Paul, if you support adopting this into the working group?
Yeah, well, okay. I just vote yes, but I have one question about this. Does this apply to all mapping types, or is this only one specific?
Oh, thank you, David. That's a good question. It only applies. I actually have to revisit that. That was one of the things that I believe Tigran brought up, and I can't recall what I responded to him. So I will go and address that issue.
Okay, right. So
His question is, does it apply to the layout?
There will be an issue before we go to last call.
Right. I mean, I'm really asking, I mean, it sounds like this is a great conversation. Yes, but I'm really asking, it sounds like there's motivation in the working group to actually resolve the issues and advance the document. Does anybody have any issues with that? And is it more than just you and Dave? Obviously, there's more reviews on the list, so that's positive. Anybody have any issues with adopting it within the working group? And the poll is up. I'll give everybody, a moment more.
This moment's for you, Lars.
He's staring at me.
Okay.
Last document, I believe.
there's a lot of clicking in between all this. That's all I'm saying. I'm clicking as fast as I can.
Mhm.
All right, so this is the layout week cache consistency. And again, it was part of the Dells did. David had a review comment that it would be great to split them out. So I did take that. And this is the one, I messed up earlier. This is the one I refreshed this morning with the changes from Tigran and Rick, where they had pointed out some specification, some issues they wanted addressed about being clear what fields we would be returning and when it was applicable to use this new call. So, and I don't think anyone else has looked at the document since it's split.
I haven't,
From-
but
from-
I should do that.
From the state of what you just said, I'd like to do a last call on the list after we get a few more reviews.
Okay. That's fair.
And not do the adoption quite yet.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Well, it's already been adopted.
Sorry, no,
It's always a
last
working-
call.
It's already a working group document.
Yeah, at last call, since he's just done an update that addressed some issues, I'd like to see a review or two, and then we can do a working group
Yeah,
last call.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
And I believe I'm done.
I think so.
Thank you.
Is that, are you going to do it from the chair? From here? What?
I don't know. I didn't prepare. I looked at them, but.
Yeah, Chuck's didn't, oh yeah, here it is. All right, when
Let's do it.
selecting-
Oh.
When selecting them.
Can I see the next slide or two? Okay.
Want me to start over?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm channeling my inner Chuck. This is Brian Plowski. Chuck Lever just wanted to give an update to the group on RPC TLS implementation status that was published as for what was RFC 9289. Work's been done in FreeBSD, Java-based clients, Hammerspace server, Linux client, and server, and the Nginx module. Next. Yeah, so just a description of some of the implementation experience. Linux kernel security community insisted on out of kernel handshake implementation via an up call. They wanted to minimize the kernel attack surface by running code in a context with lesser privilege. You can read this as well as I can. So the Linux stuff is working and running, and they've made some security decisions on the implementation. See it? Yeah, good. Okay, the Linux client's implementation is still a work in progress, nearing completion, and they're doing NVMe over TCP and possibly in kernel quick. Are you tracking? Do you still track quick? You know about Chuck's doing this?
I don't know.
Okay. I was asking. Sorry, I asked Lars Eggert about if he's.
So I know that the Microsoft Quick Stack can be run in the kernel because it's running in the Windows kernel. But and I know that some people have looked at running it inside Linux as well, but I don't know what the status of that is.
Okay.
It might also be somebody implements Quick from scratch and we don't know, but then they're doing it in the kernel. I don't know.
Okay. I wonder if the possibly means possibly in the future. Okay. Just descriptions of how you can set up the TLS stuff in the Linux NFS server. Next slide. Is that the last one?
Yep.
And then where you can pull the code down and the handshake agent, and then coming soon, the NFS utils. So Chuck just wanted to say implementation of the work is proceeding, and wanted to let people know about it. Thanks. Now, we have one more presentation, but I think we're actually going to have a little bit of time for some of the topics that we thought we might be able to discuss at the end. So just as I've been pushing time. Wait, was there a slide deck for? The last agenda is sequence ID calibration from. Is he in the? He's on.
Hi, this is Rajesh, and I'm talking from Min Chiang's laptop. It's designed Min Chiang's laptop. So, I'd like to share the slide. Should we do the slides?
You did post slides and I missed it? Sorry. Yeah, okay.
That might make it show up. Okay.
So, how do we get access to share the slides?
All right, I turned on. I turned on slide control for you.
Yeah. Okay. There is a list of slides where we are not able to see our slides.
Who sent them?
Um,
Oh, okay. Hold on. I have them.
okay.
Sorry about this. This is my fault. I missed them. Nice to have everybody watch me see how fast I can manipulate the data tracker. Just a few more clicks.
Sorry, you're expecting something from us? We
No,
are waiting for the slide.
I'm doing it.
Okay.
Almost there. Okay, almost there. Isn't there enough? Let's refresh it again. All right, when you screw this up, it would be nice if it was a little bit easier to fix on the fly. Note for the future. They're not coming. So this is, maybe this is a question to the folks who chair more often. The PowerPoint isn't getting converted on these. Share desktop.
Yes. Yes, we
Yeah.
can do that. Yeah. So I have requested to share the screen.
Okay, I was about to do it myself, but go ahead. It's all yours.
Yes. So, so we would like to discuss about one of the error scenarios in the NFS 4.1 and its impact on the ongoing IO operations as well as EOS semantics. So whenever we see whenever the replier detects a sequence error misordered, the replier will return NFS error sequence misordered to the requester. So what the requester has to do is not very clearly defined in the RFC. So what we have seen on the client side is they try to destroy the session and re-establish the session. And what we have seen, in some of the customer scenarios, and this was happening, but we don't have a clear reason on why the misorder has happened. But when this has happened, it was impacting the IO operations and as well as the exactly EOS semantics, because the requests on the other slots, not only the slot in which the misorder has happened, as being dropped and the new session is being established. So we would like to at least mitigate some of this issue, so that the other slots are not getting impacted. So we would like to propose two new operations from the requester side, which can actually try to minimize the impact of the misordered request to only to the particular slot where the issue has happened. So for this, we are trying two operations, sequence query and the CB sequence query. So this sequence query, when the requester gets a misordered response from the replier, the requester can send a sequence query operation to the replier to check what is the sequence what is the sequence of the particular slot in which the response is expected, and the replier can send the response, and the the requester then the client then actually decide, whether it can actually be able to advance this sequence ID to the sequence ID that of the server, and then proceed with IO operation, or it can also choose to drop and then re-establish the session. But we will give this choice to the client, to do that particular action. So if the client is able to do the recovery by just advancing the sequence ID and then proceeding, so this can actually minimize the impact on the IO operations as well as the EOS semantics. So these are the two operations which have suggesting which we wish to be part of the next RFC 4.1. So the sequence query can send the session ID and the slot ID in which the requester is set up, and the responder, the replier, can send the session ID, the slot ID, and the current sequence ID, where it is what is the current sequence ID of the particular slot. So after this handshake, the client can then decide, or the requester can then decide what action can be taken based on this. So we have added operations for both the front channel and the back channel for the 4.1, and so that both sessions can handle this in the manner where it can have a less impact. And we have drafted the RFC in a way that this sequence is for the session, but this can happen for the sequence for even the client. So we have also added the session as well as the client sequence ID, how to reduce the impact by having this query from the requester.
There's a question in the queue. Tom?
Yeah, my question is, what caused the misordered sequence in the first place? Is it a protocol problem or is it an implementation problem? I mean, why add operations to something that could be avoided in the first place?
Yeah, so we have not seen this issue in the in our lab environment, but we have seen this in the production. So from the limited logs what we received, maybe we suspect that there could be some network partition or some network issue which could have caused the misordered request. But nonetheless, we do
sequence.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Sorry. Yeah. So we are. So it could be even a software bug, but what we have seen is, we don't, even without any issue in the sequence ID checking or incrementing, we did see some misordered request. So but we do have an RFC where it says that there could be a misordered request, but we don't have a explanation in the RFC like how do we really handle this misordered request.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point, and but that's not a protocol change. That's potentially just a document, something missing in the document. I'm questioning if we don't understand why the misordering occurred. I mean, misordering would indicate a fatal problem. Some request was lost on the reliable connection. That would be a really bad situation, right? And so if the client and server are out of sync, there's probably an implementation issue to me. And if there's a protocol issue, the last thing we want to do is slap a new operation to fix it. We want to get to the root cause. So I'm not sure I understand that. I think I need to be convinced that there's something significantly wrong with the protocol before we extend it in a way that fixes a bug. And I don't know what that is based on what you've said so far.
Yeah. So even we are trying to understand that, but with the limited logs, we were not able to identify where exactly the problem was. But we don't see a problem or a software bug in the server implementation. Not sure. Maybe there could be some issue on the client, which is forwarding the sequence. But yeah, the software bug cannot be ruled out. Yes, it is a possibility, but we would also want to find a way by which we can recover from this scenario. But I'm not entirely confident that it is only a software bug. I think there may be a scenario where there is a misordered request has arrived on a reliable connection. But yeah, so we don't have
Well, yeah,
yeah.
normally a misordered request should never happen. I mean, if the client sent them in order and the transport delivered them in order, then they darn well better be in order. So, I don't know what the recovery should be. It's an impossible situation. So that's what confuses me.
I'd like to take a question from Tom Haynes, please.
So regardless of that fact, the other point is that you're introducing new opcodes on top of 4.1 and not 4.2. So the operations that you're proposing are already occupied by other operations. So you'd have to change this.
Tom, I think 72 on the front forward request, I believe, is not being used by 4.2. We checked the 4.2 ops.
Please go to the end. I mean, this go to the end of 4.2 and start using it. We've been tacking on operations at the end. I'd like to see us not put them in the middle.
Yes,
if possible.
Yes, Tom. We checked that in the 4.2, and then what I see is 71 is the last operation on 4.2, and we added 72.
No, so
Okay. Did you check just the 4.2 document, or did you check the existing extensions to 4.2? So you have to
we
stay
have
out of
not
that
seen the
range as well.
extension. Okay. We have not seen the extension. Maybe the released document is what we checked. Maybe yeah. We can also see the extensions and adjust the operations accordingly. In the draft.
yeah, so there are the extended adders that are in those slots.
Okay.
So
yeah. So our main point was we would have to have a mechanism in the RFC which states that how to handle this misorder. Even unlikely to happen, but how can we reduce the impact and have a mechanism in the RFC which can handle the misordered request. So that's it.
Are we done?
We seem to have lost everybody in the room.
Well, bye.
Hello. Yeah. So we are able to listen here now.
Well, the remote participants can hear each other, but we can't hear anything from the room. I wonder if they lost their network.
Hello. Hi. Is there a problem from our side, or is it a problem? We are not able to see the chair.
Yeah, that's correct. The room seems to have disappeared. The people in the room in Yokohama are no longer
Oh.
connected.